Welcome, Canada, to our election special here at TAG TV. So polls are about to close in Ontario and Quebec, and we'll have the results for you. What you're seeing here is Atlantic Canada, and one from Quebec, which they've already won. I don't know why we did that, but I think we're just assuming that Yves-François Legault will get a seat there. So here we have shaping up for what looks like a minority government, and what tonight will really determine is who will hold the balance of power in Canada's new government is what we're going to look at. So I'm Daniel Boardman. We have a great research team here. They'll be coming on the show later, but you're going to want to stay tuned here because this is the only election show that you can guarantee you will not see Rosemary Barden's condescending face at all. That is a TAG TV promise. Locking it down. All right. So this election looks, I have called this election the race to the bottom. And as you see, we have 6 parties here trying to lose the Canadian election. Tonight we're going to find out who is the worst at fumbling away an election. We don't know. So right now we have Atlantic Canada. Now the important things to know is in 2015, the last election, this was a red wave, and this went 32-0 to the Liberals. As you can see, it's not that way now. I believe the Liberals have about 19 of these are official. These seats are both leading and confirmed official. I believe the Liberals had it last time I checked. 19 are official. 3 of those Conservatives are official. So every seat you see here is actually bad news for the Liberal Party. Every seat that is not in the red is bad news. The Liberals last election had 184 seats. 170 is the majority number. So if you're at 170, you have a majority government. You fall below that, and you're in minority territory. So all the seats you see here, except for the Bloc Québécois one, if those seats are one, so right now we have 15 that you need to get to. The Liberals need to hold 15 of those seats at least. They've already lost what it looks like 8 of those 15. So if the Liberals lose 7 more seats without picking up others in different areas, they will lose the majority, and we will go into minority territory. So this election is going to be very interesting in the sense of who will hold the balance of power. My personal prediction, we're going to have the Bloc Québécois. It's going to be a nightmare government. But there are 2 general scenarios shaping up today. There's the obvious Liberal majority or Conservative majority. Those look highly unlikely at this point. So you're looking at a minority coalition. Now, will the minority be the Liberals and the NDP? This is sort of the left-wing coalition. And will it be the Liberals, NDP with a bit of the Green Party in there? Will they get enough seats that they will not need the Bloc in order to govern? That is sort of scenario A that we're looking at. The most likely scenario that plays out here, considering the Liberals had a decent showing, is that the Liberals get a minority and they can do it with the NDP, and this is sort of the left-wing coalitional government. I have a few predictions on how terrible that will be. The other possible outcome is the Conservatives have a minority, and the only way the Conservative minority functions is with the Bloc Québécois to bolster the majority. Now, this is possible, but it is not good for the Conservatives at all, because the Bloc are not a very conservative government. I mean, they're isolationist and pro-Quebec, but if you want to get pipelines built, you are not going to be able to do that with a Bloc coalition. So it's not looking good for sort of Canadian unity. It looks like this election is going to hit Western Canada pretty hard. And don't be surprised by the next election if we're talking about Western separation on the ballot if the Bloc gains substantial power. So as seats start coming in from Ontario and Quebec, this is where the election is going to be. The real election, the story of this election, is Quebec. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything and be like, ooh, we're talking about all of Canada here and do the CBC thing, and we have like 15 different analysts. Well, I think we'll max out at 4 here, right? The real story of this election, where things are really going to happen, is in Quebec. We have to understand what is Quebec going to do, and that will set the pace for the rest of Canada. So Quebec, how did it shape up in 2015? You had Liberals with 40 seats in Quebec, Conservatives with 12, NDP with 16, Bloc with 10. So the Bloc was pretty much wiped out of power. In 10 seats, they were below official party status. However, the Bloc are resurging. Our in-house predictions is around 35 seats. You could see the Bloc get as high as about 40, 41. That would be a very interesting thing. Our in-house predictions have the NDP going down to 1 seat. Now, Quebec has been a historic stronghold of the NDP. The orange wave of 2011 was mostly in Quebec. It didn't really manifest much outside of Quebec in Canada. This was Jack Layton's last year of running. But they will get one seat. And let's be honest, the reason why the NDP are not doing well in Quebec has nothing to do with the policy they're pushing. It's the same thing as always, free everything for everyone, socialist nonsense, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to cost anything. We're just going to scream free stuff to the clouds. But right now, it's a brown man in a turban saying free everything. And that does not play well in Quebec. Quebec has passed Bill 71, which is their secularism law, which basically means that you cannot be wearing a turban or having a kippah, hijabs, or crucifixes, no religious symbology in public office. And Jagmeet Singh is running for public office wearing a turban. This is heavily supported by the Quebec population, around 70-71% of the populace supporting Quebec. So the NDP are going to bleed a lot out of Quebec. So while they might be looking good in Ontario, they are not looking good in Quebec. So as we have some early projections coming in from Ontario, it looks like York Centre, Michael Levitt is winning some seats. That's a Liberal. So it's very interesting. So it's still early in Ontario, but what we're getting is some good results for the Liberals very early. But we have to see if those are done in. And again, the real part of this election, the meat of the election is not so much in Toronto Centre. Toronto Centre is going to go red or orange. The election is really determined by the GTA, sort of the 905 region. This is sort of the outskirts of Toronto, the Mississauga, Markham, Etobicoke, this region, and this is more of the swing state in Canada. I call it Canada's Ohio, because it's sort of, as the country goes, they tend to go. So that will be the main area to watch. So as it looks right now, you have early results in some ridings are good for the Liberals. And I will just, so I'll have my 2 cents here on this election. So good, you can see the results here. You have the Liberals getting about 40% of the vote. And again, remember, Atlantic Canada is their stronghold, so Atlantic Canada has been counted. So the blue wave, the big push towards the Conservatives, that will start to happen once we get west of the country. So in 2 hours is when the big Conservative push will happen. So don't panic fully now if you're a Conservative. The Conservative wave will not come for another 2 hours. But the real indication of this election, what we're really going to learn here going forward is what is the polling bias. Okay? And by what I mean is this, we all remember 2016, the American elections and Donald Trump. Donald Trump was polling at whatever. Hillary Clinton was 99% going to win. There were even polls, and I found the most shocking one where I first said, oh, polling bias is a real thing. Hillary Clinton was projected to win Georgia. And I said, Hillary Clinton's not going to win Georgia. So there's at least, what, a 6-7% polling error? So how much of this polling error is conservative and how much of it is sort of independent? And let me just break down that statement. There are many different reasons why there might be polling bias. One is just poor methodology, like they're calling people on landlines and no one answers a landline phone anymore unless they need air duct cleaning. Like that's no one, only psychopaths answer the phone if it's not a cell phone. Let's be honest. I mean, if you're answering your home phone, what are you doing with your life? 2, is there that sort of Donald Trump conservative effect where people are afraid to tell other people they're voting conservative or they're voting for Donald Trump because they're afraid of the social backlash, right? Any conservative has noticed this. You try and politely explain your views in public, some jerk's going to start yelling at you. You hate abortion for women or whatever. You're going to get that. So how much of that is a conservative thing? Or how much of it is an independent type deal? Right? How much of that is actually like sort of an outsider aren't counted in the polls? Right? Is it sort of people on the fringes, political fringes aren't counted? And the political fringes, you could say, and the other thing we'll learn is, what is the PPC? Is it more outsider or is it more conservative? This is what we'll learn about the PPC. So if you had a party in UKIP, we're going to go all around the globe here, but UKIP, the United Kingdom Independence Party, they were a single-issue party. They wanted a Brexit, a referendum to leave the EU, and they were polling and they were getting about 10 to 12% of the vote. Now they never formed seats because it was like we have first past the post. It was way too spread out, but about 10% of people were UKIP people. And people just assumed that all was the Conservative Party voting UKIP. But once Brexit was passed and UKIP support dissipated because were a single-issue party who campaigned on getting a single issue done, and they got it done. So unlike a lot of activists, like after the war was won, they went home. And they went down to about 1% because people weren't really voting for UKIP after UKIP accomplished its goal. That support didn't actually all go to the Conservatives. It turns out the UKIP support was actually this outsider faction. Right? The UKIPs, they went to, some outsiders went Corbyn because they like Corbyn's, he's off there in conspiracy land, free everything, Jews are bad, the whole Corbyn shtick. Right? And then some of those went to like the Liberal Democrats, some went Conservative, right? It went pretty much more spread out than you think. So what is the PPC and what is polling bias? Does it mean anything? Because all the polls had, Conservatives 32%, Liberals, it had the Conservatives and Liberals sort of polling both at around 32%. Some said the Conservatives at 33, Liberals at 31, others said the Liberals at 32.5, and the Conservatives at 30.7. So all the different polls were all over the place. So I want to see, is there a polling bias in the general consensus, right? Is it an international thing? Is it an outsider? Is it real? And does it measure or not measure more accurately outsiders or conservatives, right? Who's not being measured? Is it political outsiders or conservatives? So what I mean that if you have the conservatives polling at, 30, let's say 32%, and you have the PPC polling at around 3%, is the polling bias unaccounting? Does it really mean the PPC is at 6% and the conservatives are really at 32.5%? Or does it mean that it's actually split, it's like a right-wing thing, where the PPC are actually at 4.5% and the Conservatives are at 33.5%, right? Is it really just not measuring, is it people, or, right-wing people just not wanting to be part of a system they see biased against them? Is that it? So that will be sort of, I think that will be the main story for the Conservatives going into this election. We'll also see, this will really test how strong a candidate Andrew Scheer is. Is there a laugh track? No, we don't have a laugh track. Okay, so there's no laugh track after that. Okay. We'll also learn, if Elizabeth May was able to make any progress, offer 2 seats. I have the personal opinion that she really fumbled the ball here with her lack of a solid campaign. All right, so now we're starting to get some results. We got the Liberals at 44, the Conservatives at 15, and let's bring on some other people who aren't me, because I've laid out the hosting thing.